Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name's Curtis and this is the Curt Locker. Today I'm giving you guys my sort of first impressions of the Stray Dog Alpha Series bench. Now the whole reason that I say sort of is because I've actually had this bench for about a month. I've been using it pretty regularly for that month. So although this is not my typical in-depth review, I am going to go over my first impressions as well as the first month worth of use. Specifically what I'm going to be telling you about and what's going to be in the timestamps down below on the bar is an overview of the bench to include construction and materials and such. Additionally, I'm going to cover the manipulation of the bench itself, which is going to include moving it around as well as adjusting the pads. After that, we're going to talk about the pads, followed by some of my notes on aesthetics and just how the bench looks in general. And of course, we'll talk about the different options available, and final opinions will of course be at the end. First, let's start by just defining what kind of function this bench brings to the table. This is an adjustable bench. It can be used in either the flat position, which it's kind of in right now, except for it's standing upright, and it can also incline. This bench does not have the option to decline. So this is not an FID bench. This is just an FI, or a flat incline style bench. Every 15 degrees, you do have an option for a setting. Some of the unique things about this is it's actually made, the main spine, the feet, most of the bench material itself is made out of this 3x3 11 gauge material, which is the exact same material found on Stray Dog's racks and most made in USA racks available today. One other unique aspect is that Stray Dog has gone with a closed ladder that is a reverse ladder. So normally what you would find is that the ladder would actually be on the spine of the bench, but instead of putting it on the spine, they have added it up here to the back pad of the bench, which in my opinion adds to a lot of stability, and we'll cover the actual function of the reverse ladder a little bit later. Another unique aspect is that there are 3 1-inch holes here at the back of the bench, and what this does is it allows you to use different attachments, for instance landmines or utility rollers, so that you can use this bench to assist with other strength movements throughout the gym. The flat pad, or the main portion of the back pad here, measures 40 inches tall by 12 inches wide. Now when you measure from the floor to the top of the bench, I measure right at 17 1/8 of an inch, which puts you right to within IPF spec. The seat pad is 12 inches in the back, tapering up to 7.5 inches in the front. It is 12.5 inches long total, and with a 1.5 inch gap, what you end up with is about a 54.5 inch total pad space that you have to work with when you're using it in the flat position. This is not a zero gap style bench. This is a hinge, and it's a top mounted hinge. It's just barely below grade. I've actually never felt this hinge with my body when I've been using the bench, and it only gives you about 1.25 to 1.5 inch of a gap, which is really not much at all. If you have your butt firmly planted here and your shoulders planted on the top portion, I have never once felt anything in this gap at all. It does use a vertical handle for moving the bench around, and that handle is made out of 28.5 mil bar stock material. It is the exact same bar stock that Stray Dog uses for their power bar. Additionally, with moving it around, it's got these ABEX 7 series rollers, which are bearings on the Stray Dog urethane rollers, which are really nice. They move around really nicely. They're quiet. They go off onto the concrete just fine, and it goes around the gym just fine. I've also found that for getting it off and onto the platform, that they're tall enough that it isn't overly difficult, but they're not so tall that they touch the ground when the bench is laying flat. Now the total footprint in the upright storage configuration is 24.5 inches by about 17.1/8 of an inch, which is really not that big of a footprint. We'll talk about the stability of this later, but I can clue you that it is actually very stable with this rear foot coming out the back. So the rear support piece, being that 3x3 material, is about 24.5 inches long and about 5 inches long from the front of the rear post to the back of the wheel. The front foot is this hexagonal type shape, and it is about 7.5 inches wide from foot to foot. So for those of you that are looking for a really solid adjustable bench that has a minimal front foot so that you can get your feet into a good position, this is a very good option. The total footprint when it's laying flat like this is 24.5 inches wide from the back frame to the back frame to 58 total inches long, and that is coming from the front of the post here all the way to the back of where the bench sits in storage configuration. So one of the things that Stray Dog did really well is they use these round rubber feet materials, and what I find is that these things are grippy enough that they do not budge. There's a total of 4 of them, 2 on the front post and then 1 on each side of the rear post. And that is what allows you to basically use leg drive and push against the floor, against the back pad without the bench moving around on you. I'm telling you right now that of the benches I've tested, this is definitely one of the most secure to the floor that I've ever seen. Now we'll talk about options a little bit more later, but I did get the optional logo plate here, which is really nice. They use a layered design to get the color scheme that I wanted with my Kurt Locker logo. I think it looks really sharp and they did a fantastic job. Another option that I chose not to get was the rear spotter plate, and the rear spotter plate would normally bolt on right here. It does come with the holes so that if you decide to upgrade to the spotter plate later, you just have to go purchase it, ship it to you, and it just goes on there with a couple carriage bolts. Another option that I did choose to get is I went with the premium pad, and the premium pad is very similar to the standard pad. The only difference is the premium pad comes with steel backing like this, and it also comes with an optional wear cover that is just blank. Now you can customize that wear cover with a logo or some sort of design if you wish. I chose to keep mine blank just for now. I didn't want to repeat my Kurt Locker logo. I was kind of thinking later down the road, I'll probably customize that when I think of something more creative. If you opt for the normal pad, the actual pad top and the material stays the same. The only difference is that instead of having the steel back, you'll just have a felt backing and you won't get the optional wear cover. So now that I've kind of told you how the bench is constructed and everything that goes into the bench, I'm going to take you guys through my training notes and my opinions on this thing. So we're going to start with the number one thing out of the Home Gym Discord, and if you're not a member of the Home Gym Discord, you should be. They are linked down below in the description box. But the 2 questions that I got asked out of the Home Gym Discord had to do with the vertical bar stock handle and also one-handed manipulation of the actual back pad. So let's start off with one-handed manipulation. Now with the traditional ladder design, one of the really nice pieces is that coming up from flat to incline, you can pretty much just do one-handed adjustments for all the available angles. Now for a reverse ladder design, that's going to change a little bit. Now that doesn't mean that one-handed adjustment from the flat to the incline isn't possible. It actually is possible, but it's only possible for certain angles. So as we come up from flat, what you find is that as this arm back here is tilted back, you're not going to be able to do any sort of one-handed manipulation. So again, I haven't touched the bar yet, but as we come up to the 45, that's when the arm is straight up and down, and what you can do is you can actually do a one-handed manipulation up to the 45, 60, 75, and 85-degree positions. Now coming back down, it's not actually possible to do a one-handed adjustment, so you just have to pull back until you get, again, vertical, where the 45-degree point is. And then from these, so basically you're missing out on 30 degrees and 15 for one-handed adjustments. So what you technically get is 0, 45, 60, 75, and 85 with ease with just one hand. Coming back down, take it all the way back down to 0. Once you're past the 45, you can let go. Now, one thing I did find with one-handed adjustments is avoid the urge to put your hand dead center on the back of the head of the pad, because as you come down, what you'll end up doing is smashing your fingers where the UHMW plastic that's right here meets the upright of the rear spine. Now, unfortunately, with the seat pad, one-handed manipulation is really just not possible because of the design. It's always going to be tilted away, so it's always going to be impossible. So you'll have to use 2 hands to do your adjustments on the seat pad. But even then, it's very simple, very easy to do. I'm not even paying attention and I'm able to do it just fine. So the second question had to do with the vertical bar stock handle. Now the real question here is the vertical versus horizontal handle orientation on the front of the bench. Now with the vertical one, what I find is that it's very easy to adjust and move around the gym if you're keeping it nice and low. So if you're just going to adjust its position inside the bench, the low vertical handle is really nice. Now, if you're picking it up from a flat to a vertical position, I find that the handle is still comfortable, although up around here it does become slightly uncomfortable to use. And what I also find is that when I'm moving it around the gym, so let's say that I have it stored somewhere and I want to move it inside of the rack, is that I tend to use the sides of the hexagonal foot to actually move it into any other sort of position. So with this being a top of the line bench, I did make a suggestion to Stray Dog Strength, and what I suggested was to actually keep the handle here, but to also put a handle, kind of like a horizontal shaped handle, similar to Rogue's Adjustable Bench 3.0's handle, that's kind of built in right here. Although it does give you two handles, I don't really think it would take away aesthetically from the bench. It would afford a lot more functionality and give people the option that they want to use more often. However, I don't think that Stray Dog is going to do that, because the cost to change that per unit to include like reprogramming the laser to cut the foot plate the right way, purchasing the new UHMW pieces to make it look good, as well as probably putting some deliberate design into it to make it something that is a Stray Dog product, is just not worth the function in the long run. So next I would like to talk about another form of manipulation, and that is actually the reverse ladder design. Now, I really like the reverse ladder design for a couple different reasons. One, I think it really makes the spine of the bench look cleaner. I think it adds a lot of stability as well as support, because consider that this bracket is now on the back of the bench versus being on the spine. And then for me, as I'm moving around the gym, let's say that I have this set up in like the 75-degree position, I no longer have to be wary of the closed ladder design being right here. I can just step right over. For me, this is also a big plus because I have kids and they are very commonly in the gym with me, and I know that I have actually seen kids trip on the ladder that's on the spine, as well as maybe fall on it after they've been playing up on the back pad. So for me, I think it adds a lot of value having the reverse ladder. I think that the one-handed adjustment, which seems to be kind of a sticking point for some people, for me personally is not that big of a piece of drama that's going to cause me to regret the reverse ladder. Some other benefits to the reverse ladder are that if you're using the bench for, let's say, single arm curls, you can actually step onto the spine if you want, or if you have the spotter deck, step up onto the spotter deck, and you're not actually stepping on the ladder at all, you're just stepping on the spine of the bench. So it's really comfortable, there's nothing for your foot to catch on, and it offers a really clean look. Now when it comes to adjusting both the back pad as well as the front pad, everything adjusts really nicely, and that's because what they've done is instead of going steel on steel, just putting holes and a bolt through, everything that adjusts on this, to include this hinge here, and the hinges at the bottom of both of the arms, utilize bushings to actually move up and down. What that does is it makes it so that it's very easy to adjust, and although it's heavy, it moves really nice. Now, when I say it's heavy, I mean it's relatively heavy for a back pad, and that's because mine also has that steel layer on the back side. However, I can move it up and down with just 2 fingers with ease. Now going back to the storage of this, I tend to store this vertically, and I tend to store it either behind my rack or just out of the way, and I actually feel comfortable leaving this thing in the vertical position, because even when I'm here pushing on it pretty hard up at the top, I know that it really isn't going to fall, and it takes quite a bit to actually get it to completely fall completely over. Plus you're having to push it exactly in that direction. If you're pushing straight on, it just kind of comes right back, and if you're pushing from the pad side, it tends to just walk forward. So for me, having my kids in the gym, I feel 100% comfortable leaving this thing upright with them around, and I'm not concerned about it falling on them or hurting them or destroying something else that might be in the gym. Now, when you're moving this around in the down position, I tend to bench inside my rack, and so one of the issues that I thought I might have, that I actually don't really have that much of, is getting this rear upright up against this horizontal cross member that's in my bench. What I find is that by using this front handle, I can actually adjust it using the amount of give that's just in its stock without actually moving the bench off of the wheels to within 1.5 inches of the rear cross member. For me, that's actually enough to be able to bench press right here without having to move the bench back at all. So now when it comes to the actual pad of the bench, and mind you, I'm sweating all over this. It's a 110-degree heat index today, but here I am doing this video for you guys. So the actual vinyl material is very similar to the Rogue AB2 and the Rogue AB3. Now I've never used the adjustable bench 3.0 or 2.0, so I can't speak to its familiarity to that, but I can tell you that it is made by a similar or possibly the same manufacturer that does the Rogue benches. The top of the bench consists of a heavy-duty vinyl covering over a nice foam pad. For me, this offers the stability that I personally prefer for bench. I really don't like an overly soft bench, but I also don't like to bench off of a piece of wood. So this is a really nice compromise between the two. On the side of the pad, it has this heavy-duty nylon, and what that does is provide a little bit of breathability for the inside so you don't build up mold, as well as just being very resilient to any sort of wear that might occur on the outside of the bench. The foam is on top of a 3/4 inch OSB piece of plywood, which is pretty standard as far as benches go. And underneath that on mine, as stated earlier, I have the upgraded premium pad, so I have a piece of steel behind all of that. And then of course, the main support of the whole thing is the reverse ladder that's mounted to the back side of the bench. What I find specifically as far as stiffness goes is that I like the stiffness as mentioned earlier. And then as far as grip goes, I think it actually offers a really fair amount of grip. Now I have used the upgraded rep benches, and I do think that they have a little bit more tack to them. However, this bench does very well with just a standard shirt as to not allowing you to actually move back without skipping across the bench. Especially when you bench press under load, what I find is that when I use leg drive, I tend to drive into the bench and I don't slip on the bench. The seat pad is comprised of the exact same material as the front pad, and it has adjustments for 30 degrees, 15 degrees, and then of course, flat. The back pad, as mentioned earlier, has 7 different adjustment points. It has 0, 15, 30, 45, 60, 75, and 85 degree adjustment points. One of the last things I want to talk about is the actual aesthetics of the bench. Now for me, as mentioned previously, I absolutely love the clean look that the 3x3 spine, front and rear feet, the simple lines that are in this actually brings a lot of value to me as far as aesthetics go. And as I mentioned earlier, I think that that cleanliness of look is only made better by having the reverse ladder system that's mounted on the back side of the pad instead of on the spine. I also find the branding to be really nice on each one of the feet. Here on the bottom, it has the SD logo cut out, and it also has a very nice riveted laser cut steel logo on the front foot. One of the things that I think Stray Dog could do better as far as aesthetics go is to use carriage bolts in several key parts of the bench. So they already use carriage bolts to attach this bracket here to the other side, and I think that if they were to include it on this joint here, as well as the logo nameplate, where the feet attach and where the wheels attach, would just make it a little bit cleaner looking and kind of give it that more uniform appearance. Now this isn't a deal breaker for me. This is me just giving my opinions, and I don't know if they're actually going to make that change or not. One other area of improvement that I'd love to see is that you have lovely laser cut numbers that indicate the angle on this side of the bench. However, on this side of the bench, it is just a blank face on the front and the back pad. I think that adding laser cut numbers to both sides, although it does add a cost as far as tooling time, I think that it would add a little bit of value, and again, just be like those little attention to details that could take this thing from a 10 to an 11 on a scale of awesomeness. Now, as mentioned earlier, I didn't opt for the spotter deck. It does come with the carriage bolt holes to actually mount the spotter deck, and I will likely be purchasing that as time goes on. One of the reasons that I chose not to get it is because as of right now, I don't really have a training partner that I train with. But what I find is that if I want to use this as a one-arm preacher pad or use it in any other sort of way where I'm going to step on the spine, is that I would rather have the plate there to be able to step on versus having to just step on the spine itself. One other area that I customize is I got the custom logo plate here. One of the areas that does kind of get in the way, so if you do get this, if you are someone that maybe does one-handed rows and you just take a single dumbbell, put it down, you roll it under the bench, if you have the laser plate here, you will not be able to actually roll the dumbbell underneath the bench. However, I was able to use one in the Stray Dog showroom, and what I found is that the dumbbell rolled underneath the bench just fine. Now this bench is offered in a two-tone paint option. You can opt to get the whole bench the same color, so I got a two-tone, so I got black accent with the red, and there's 11 different colors that you can choose from on the Stray Dog website at the base price. So that's without having to pay any sort of customization fee. You can get 11 different finish options, and I think that that is probably the only company that I've seen on the market that offers that much variety per bench. Now, it doesn't just stop with powder coat options, it also counts for pad material. You can customize the pad material, and there are 9 different color options to be able to do that. Additionally, like I said earlier, you can customize the wear cover if that's something you want. You can also get like a black wear cover with a red bench. You can do that kind of an option as well. All of those options are available on the Stray Dog website. So I'm going to end this by giving you guys kind of my final thoughts as far as my first impressions go. Now this bench, it does cost a fair amount of money at the time of making this video. It can cost upwards of $870 or higher depending on the customization that you choose to do. Now I did pay for this bench. I didn't get this for free, and I can tell you that I don't regret purchasing it, and I really do think that it is likely going to be a very long-term bench as far as my gym goes. That's been it for this first impression and review video. Tell me what you guys think in the comments down below. This is an American-made, American-manufactured bench. It's done by a small family in Columbus, Ohio that is doing awesome work, but those are just my opinions. Comment down below and tell me if I'm right, tell me if I'm wrong, and most importantly, tell me why. That's been it for this video. I appreciate each and every single one of you guys that watch every week, and remember that when it comes to your garage gym, and of course your bench, you should always keep it better, awesome, and of course, badass. I'll see you next time.